Hello there. I'm screenwriter and tough guy film expert Mike Malloy, and I was on that interactive television thing not long ago. What's it called? The computer. And in the big Facebook group for Eurocrime movies, someone made the comment that he found the 1974 Italian-made revenge film Street Law to be disappointing. He basically didn't like the fact that star Franco Nero was not a non-stop ass-whooping machine during most of the film. I countered that the whole point of Street Law was that Franco Nero's character was an everyman. Not a Superman, but an everyman, who has to rise to the occasion, has to force himself to toughen up and become the hero. Fortunately, most everyone agreed with my evaluation of the film. But then I got to thinking, not only is Street Law a great everyman story, it's also one of only 2 films that I've seen that take that premise so far as to include a certain type of scene. The other movie that includes this type of scene is The Next 3 Days from 2010. Now, what is this scene? Basically, it's the protagonist getting beaten up when he takes the very first baby step of his quest. He's not doing anything big yet. He hasn't caught up to the real bad guys. He's just sniffing around, and he can't even handle that. And I think that's a wonderfully realistic scene to include, because the average person is not skilled at navigating the criminal underworld. They probably would make some mistakes when first poking around. So this type of scene is a genius step that establishes the realistic capabilities of the protagonist, the realistic tone of the film, and the intimidating nature of the opponents to come. And yet most all revenge and vigilante films skip it, even if they are trying to be vaguely grounded. So let's quickly look at how both films use this scene. In Street Law, Franco Nero's character is an average citizen who's seeking some sort of justice against the crooks who attacked him during a bank robbery. He doesn't know who they are, so his very first step is to start asking around, and he makes some inquiries at a sketchy bar. Some random hoodlums are shooting pool at the bar, and they don't like the idea of some well-dressed guy coming in and asking questions. So they rough Franco Nero up, they chase him, they smash his car. Jump ahead 35 years to 2010. In The Next 3 Days, Russell Crowe plays a college professor hoping to devise a prison escape plan for his wrongfully accused wife. His very first criminal step is to see if he can buy some forged passports. He doesn't know where to turn for those, so he just starts approaching street-level drug dealers, asking them. And what is a guy who's clearly middle class? What does that guy get for asking around? Well, he gets beat up by the dealer and his friend, and left bloody on the ground. So, 2 movies with the same basic scene, right? And in fact, in all the everyman tough guy movies I've seen, those are the only 2 I can recall with such a scene. And my initial reaction is to applaud both of them for independently arriving at such a great, realistic step in their respective plots. But I rewatched both these scenes before recording this, and I didn't realize until just now how very, very similar they are. Both scenes have their hero entering a bar, then asking a bartender for some information, then running afoul somebody shooting a game of pool. Yeah, the game of pool factors into both movies, mind you. Then getting beaten up, and lastly receiving a verbal threat. And listen to how similar the threats are. And don't you show your dumb face around here again, you got me? If I ever see your face again, you're gonna lose an eye. So even though it was my original intention to praise both of these scenes, let's look at some conspiracy theory BS to see whether the Street Law scene consciously or subconsciously influenced the scene from The Next 3 Days. And it is just stupid conspiracy BS, as I'll prove later. But in the meantime, indulge me. First of all, how might I know any of what I'm about to say? Well, I worked with Franco Nero, star of Street Law, when I was involved in the official Django sequel project, Django Lives. My co-writer on that was Eric Zaldivar. Now here's the weirdness. Eric was hanging out with Franco Nero a few years ago in Hollywood. And who else was hanging out with them? Bobby Moresco, the co-writer of the 2004 race-mongering film, Crash. Crash was directed by Paul Haggis, and Paul Haggis later wrote and directed The Next 3 Days. And to make things weirder, the drug dealer in The Next 3 Days was played by RZA of Wu-Tang. And the Django Lives team informally met with RZA to see if he was interested in a role, back when Eric and I were involved with the project. Point is, Franco Nero starred in Street Law. Then he knew Bobby Moresco, who co-wrote Crash with Paul Haggis, who wrote and directed The Next 3 Days. So while that's some interesting coincidences, here's why it's conspiracy theory BS. The Next 3 Days was based on a 2008 French film, Pour Elle, aka Anything for Her. I haven't seen Pour Elle, but I reached out to my French colleague, and sure enough, he had the DVD on his shelf. He popped the disc in his player, and the French version did indeed have the equivalent scene. So when I say the 2 tough guy movies that are realistic enough to contain the sniff around and find out scene, I technically mean 3. In any case, Street Law was made in the 1970s, which was an amazing time for everyman movies. From Deliverance, to Hardcore, to the original Death Wish. But think about something like Death Wish. As Bronson's New York architect character begins slowly getting the impression that he might need a handgun for protection, the story doesn't send him out on the streets to get beaten up while trying to buy a black market piece. Instead, the story sidesteps the Street Law / Next 3 Days type scene by sending the New Yorker all the way to a state where handguns are legal, where he is conveniently gifted a revolver by a grateful client. And as for films made in the new millennium, we have what should be everyman movies. This whole subgenre of middle-aged fathers fighting off bad dudes to rescue and/or protect their families. But the films are always too predictable to make them true everyman characters. The heroes always have some special set of skills that they learned from being a former Navy SEAL or an ex-Army Ranger or retired from some other type of special forces. Today's films, with their tiresome bloodlusts, want a certain level of carnage, and the filmmakers figure that an everyman character won't be able to realistically pull off the desired amounts of precision neck chops and crazy gun fu. Well, at least we have these 3 films. And let that be a screenwriting tip for you if you want to write something tough but realistic. Maybe we can make it 4.